In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the rear calipers on this Ford Excursion. Sitting right behind your rear wheels, let's get started. Use a 21mm socket, remove all 8 lug nuts, and then pull the wheel off. Before we start this job, I just want to mention that the vehicles that are built in 1999, this one included, will take a right side caliper on both the left and the right. You'll notice that this one on the driver's side is sitting on the front of the axle, passenger side will be on the rear of the axle. Now, any Excursions built in 2000 or after will actually take a separate driver's side caliper as opposed to the passenger side. So when you do these calipers, you want to make sure you have the right one. On the back side, you'll see two 18mm mounting bolts. In my case, these are actually studs with a second mounting nut on it. So just take them off. They should come off as an assembly like this. I'm going to leave this one on a couple threads to hold the caliper while I remove the top one. There we go, take that out. Support your caliper, take off the lower, and with that out, we can remove the caliper from the rotor. If you flip it over, you'll actually be able to remove your brake pads, and this is why I took it off as an assembly, because it's easy to just push them out towards the inside of the caliper, and then once they're out we can transfer them over to our new caliper. Take these out, same with this one, just push it right in. All right, take both of these out, and now so that we don't pull on the brake hose, I'm going to set the caliper right here on top of the axle. With the new caliper on the bench, let's apply some silicone paste or brake grease to the areas where the anti-rattle clips will go. When you do this, just be sure that if you use silicone paste, you use some that is rated for high temperatures so it can withstand the temperatures the brakes operate at and not melt away. You also want a thin layer because if you put too much, when you put the anti-rattle clips on, it'll squeeze out, get onto the rotor, which rides in the middle, and that would not be good. Now squeeze these on and make sure they're fully seated. And while we're in the area, we're also going to pull the slider pins out one at a time. You'll see that they don't really have much grease on them. This is just here for transportation. So I'm going to grease them up with plenty of silicone paste on the pin, but you don't want too much because the boot will actually wipe a lot of it off as you try to insert it back into the caliper. However, what I will do is take some on my brush and put it right inside here in the folds of the boot. This is going to pack some grease in here and allow it to spread evenly as the brakes operate over time. Now press the pin in, and when you do this, make sure it's fully seated, and you'll notice that there's some air trapped behind it. To get that air out, press in on the pin, squeeze the boot. That's going to get all of the air out. Give it a couple twists to work it back and forth. Now flip the caliper bracket over, and we'll do the same exact thing over here. Put your caliper bracket back on the truck. Line it up with the bolts. With them started, let's snug them up. The torque on these two is between 74 and 100 foot-pounds. I'm just going to go for 100. It's on the higher end of the range, but once again, 74 to 100. All right, let's put the brake pads in, slide them in at an angle, and then push them in. They should slide right in easily. If they don't, if they get stuck or they don't slide around freely like this, most likely these anti-rattle clips aren't seated all the way and they're kind of crushing the pads in. At this point, we can install our caliper. Now let's install our caliper. Slide it over. Make sure it goes over both pins, just like that. Start in your bolts that secure this to the pins. And let's snug these up. These are 12 millimeter in size. The torque on these two is between 16 and 30 foot-pounds. I'm going to go for 25. It's time to swap the brake hose over, so I'm going to remove the banjo bolt from the new caliper with the 2 copper washers that are provided. Once you have this off, you can remove one of the copper washers, but leave the other one on because it's going to have to stay on the bolt anyway. And then set this aside, and we'll disconnect the hose off the old caliper and swap it over. Take the old caliper, remove the banjo bolt. This is a 14 millimeter banjo bolt. Let that caliper drain into a collection bucket, and we'll remove not just the banjo bolt, but also the existing copper washers. Sometimes these get stuck. Make sure neither of them get stuck on the hose. At this point, we're going to take our new banjo bolt with that copper washer, slide it through, and then the other new copper washer on the other side, sandwiching the hose in between the two. We're going to bring this up to the caliper, make sure the hose is lined up correctly, and start this in. Make sure it does not cross thread. Snug this up. Let's torque this to 26 foot-pounds. That's it right there. You just want to squish the copper washers. That's going to form between the brake hose and the bolt and the caliper and create a nice tight seal. Remove the cap off of the bleeder screw, and with a 10 millimeter wrench, open this up. We're going to perform what's called a gravity bleed. This entails gravity pulling the fluid into the caliper and pushing the air out. This will get most, if not all, of the air out of this caliper. But if you need to do a full manual brake bleed at the end, if you think there's more air, you'll see how to do that at the end of the video. For now, let's just wait for a steady trickle of fluid to come out of the bleeder screw. That'll complete our gravity bleed. There's our fluid. I'm going to wait about 5 seconds, make sure that there's no air bubbles coming out. Move this around just to get any air bubbles out if they are trapped behind the bleeder screw. Looks like we have fresh, clean fluid, no air bubbles. So close this off. When you tighten this, just give it a quick snug after it bottoms out. You don't want to over tighten this and round it off or potentially break it. Wipe off any brake fluid that got onto the area here. You could even use brake parts cleaner to rinse it off. Once that's all dried up, cap off the bleeder screw. That way it doesn't get clogged up and full of debris. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 8 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern so the wheel can seat evenly, and then torque them to 148 foot-pounds, also in a cross pattern. A 148 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Here we go. Double check them if you'd like. Take it for a road test. Underneath the hood, on the driver's side of the engine compartment, you'll find your master cylinder reservoir. Wipe it off if it has a lot of debris. You don't want that contaminating the fluid that's in here. Turn the cap counterclockwise and pull it off. If you read carefully, you'll see that it says to only use .3 brake fluid, so make sure that's what you have on hand and make sure you have plenty of it because this is quite a large master cylinder reservoir. Remove all of the brake fluid that's here, and you can do that by using either a vacuum pump with a little reservoir on it or a fluid transfer pump, whatever you have that's going to get in here with a little hose and remove the fluid. Fill up the master cylinder with .3 brake fluid all the way to the max line. Reinstall the cap. It's time to start bleeding these calipers, and on this vehicle we want to start at the right rear wheel. That's the passenger side rear. After bleeding that caliper, move over to the left rear. Then you're going to top off the master cylinder, make sure it stays full. Then move over to the right front caliper, bleed that, and the last one will be the left front caliper. At that point, you're going to want to top the master cylinder off again and feel the pedal. If it feels like there's still air in the system, continue bleeding in the same sequence, basically just repeat it until you're satisfied with the brake pedal feel. Now we have an assistant inside the vehicle ready to pump up the brake pedal and hold pressure. After a few pumps, as they hold, I'm going to open up the bleeder screw and fluid, potentially air, will come out of this bleeder screw. I also have this collection receptacle with a hose attached to it so I don't make a mess, but of course a collection bucket would work just fine as well. At this point, I'm going to wait for them to tell me they're ready to hold. All right, they're holding pressure. So open this up with a 10mm wrench. There we go, we got some air. Go ahead and pump again. All right, they're holding. We're going to do this until there are no more air bubbles coming out of the bleeder screw. Okay, go again. Holding. Okay, this was clean. Let's do it one last time. Go ahead and pump. Perfect. You can let go of the brake pedal now. I snug this back up. I'm going to remove my collection hose. Now, if your brake caliper had a cover, of course you'd want to cover this back up. For me, I'm just going to wipe this down, make sure there's no brake fluid. If there is any, you can use some brake parts cleaner and rinse it off. And at this point, you would do the same exact thing to the other side, that is the left rear caliper, and then of course top off the master cylinder after you've bled both of these rears. Now let's top off the master cylinder up to the max line. Reinstall the cap. The right front caliper, we have bled both rears and topped off the master cylinder, so let's take the cap or the boot off of this bleeder screw. This one has one, so we're going to save it. And I'm going to put my hose on here. This also takes a 10mm wrench to break free. I'm going to have my assistant pump up the brake pedal now and create pressure. Go ahead and pump. All right, they're holding pressure, so I'm going to open this up. All right, lots of air on this one. Go ahead and pump again. All right, this one was clean at the end. Let's do it one more time. Go ahead and pump. This was good. Let's do it one last time. Go ahead and pump. Perfect. You can let go of the brake pedal now. I got nice clean fluid. I'm going to remove my hose. Wipe this off, spray it down if necessary, and cover this back up so that it doesn't get clogged up and rust. At this point, we're going to bleed the left front, do the caliper the exact same way, and then we'll top off the master cylinder one last time. Top off the master cylinder all the way to the max line. right about there. Perfect. We'll cap this off. And if you are unsatisfied with how the brake pedal feels, you think there's more air, repeat the bleed in the same exact sequence until you are satisfied. And of course, don't forget to keep that master cylinder topped off at all times. Now put the wheels back on. The wheel torque is 148 foot-pounds on all 4 wheels.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.